and they went to different places, and they began to differ from one another. And then once they differed, they began to disagree with one another. And then Allah, فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ النَّبِيِّينَ. Then Allah sent the prophets, مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ, giving good news and warning. وَأَنزَلَ مَعْهُمُ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ. Then He revealed the book with them in truth. لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِيمَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. To judge amongst mankind about those things which they differ. Tell them the truth about their disagreements. This verse is a very beautiful verse because it tells us that, O mankind, you are all from the same origin. You are all Banu Adam. You're all the children of Adam. You're all the same. Yes, you differ. Yes, you look different. You have different cultures. You have different opinions. But you're all from the same source, from the same origin. And that thing which will unite us is the submission to the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the message which all of the prophets of God have brought to us. And this is a very important reminder. Yes, we differ, but we're all from the same source. And actually, it is God who wanted us to differ. He created us different, isn't it? وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And from His signs are that He has created the heavens and the earth. وَاخْتِلَافِ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ. And that you are different in your languages and in your appearance, in your colors, isn't it? Allah wanted us to be like. He created us like this. He created us as one, of course, but then later He created us in different ways. Creation, of course, here being with the passage of time, we became like that by the decree of God. Yeah. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. There is signs in this for those who use their intellect, those who know and understand. Allah wanted us to be different because there are benefits to this difference. And there is also a test in this difference. Allah wants to test us by making us different. And I'm not going to talk about the benefits today. Today I want to talk about that test. Yeah? Allah is testing us by making us different to see whether or not we will let those differences become the cause for enmity, for pointless animosity, or whether or not we will unite as brothers. And actually this sort of enmity because of differences, what we call racism, that is actually, and I've talked about this before, that is an invention of Iblis. He was the first racist. Yeah? Because when Adam was created, he said, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْ خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ. I'm better than him. You created me from fire, and you created him from clay. Yeah? Not that I'm better because I'm smarter, or I have more taqwa, I have more... No, I'm better because of my origin. Yeah? It's no different. I'm better because I'm white and he's black. I'm better because I'm black and he's white. It's not different, isn't it? It's the same mentality. So, in fact, this is those who are racist, those who are bigoted, they are following in the footsteps of shaitan. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tattabi'u khutuwati shaitan. Allah instructs the believers, do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. And not only Iblis, the soldiers of Iblis, those other shayateen, which can be of ins as well, of mankind as well, they too want to teach others about this sort of racist mentality. They want to instill that in others. We have the example of that in the Quran, in Surah Al-Fath, with regards to the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. I talked about that a few months ago. And then when the Muslims wanted to make the pilgrimage to Mecca, and then the Quraysh stopped them and prevented them from entering, and then that led to the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And of course, it was illegal for the Quraysh to stop the Muslims from coming. You know, the Arabs didn't have a lot of laws. It was, law of the jungle was the main law there. Who's powerful can oppress the weak. But they had a few laws which they all respected. And one of those few laws was the law of the Haram, isn't it? That the Mecca had the Haram, it had the forbidden zone where no one was allowed to fight. Even if they were at war and they were killing each other, when they came to Mecca, they should respect each other, not fight each other, isn't it? And this was the reason for the existence of Quraysh, because that was why they were respected, because they were the upkeepers of the Haram, isn't it? That was why they were respected amongst the Arabs. So now Quraysh is stopping the Muslims from coming to Mecca and saying that, we don't want to because we're at war with them. This is illegal. This was their reason for existence. Why they were. So how did they justify that? How did they get their own people to accept it? إذ جعل الذين كفروا في قلوبهم الحمية حمية الجاهلية. They put this mentality of jahiliyyah, of the pre-Islamic ignorance, in the minds of the people, encouraging them for enmity with the Muslims. They said that, would you want that the one who has killed your father or your brother or your uncle or whatever, that he comes and he goes around the Kaaba in peace and no one does anything to him? Can you accept that? And this is how they were getting people angry, filling them with hatred and anger. This was the mentality, the hamiyya, this sort of bigoted mentality of the jahiliyyah which they were putting in them. So they were really doing the work of shaitan, isn't it? And Allah, of course, helped the Muslims, the believers, to not succumb to that mentality, even though they were being provoked. And I talked about it, how they were provoking the Muslims and disrespecting the Prophet and trying to get them to do something, so then they could say, look, they started the fight and now we can't let them come because of that. So Allah prevented that from happening because He wanted the treaty of Hudaybiyah. Of course, this was very difficult for the Prophet ﷺ to remove this mentality from the hearts of the Muslims. And that was a huge struggle to try to get that bigoted mentality of the Jahiliyyah out of their hearts. There's an example which is mentioned in the books of Hadith, like Sunan of Abu Dawood and Bayhaqi, and also in books of history like Sirah of Ibn Hisham, Sirah Bidayah and Nihaya of Ibn Kathir, and other books, where after the Battle of Badr, when Suhail ibn Amr, the guy who was writing the treaty on behalf of Quraysh in Hudaybiyah later, but this was after the Battle of Badr, he was captured, and then Sauda, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, who was a relative to Suhail, and when she saw him captured, then she exclaimed, when he was brought in chains, she then exclaimed that, why did you let yourself be captured, O Abu Yazid? That's what his kunya. Why did you let yourself be captured, O Abu Yazid? You should have fought until you died. And then the Prophet turned to Sauda and said, what are you saying, Sauda? That أَتَحْرِضِينَ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَعَلَى رَسُولِهِ? That are you encouraging him against Allah and His Prophet? To fight against Allah and His Messenger? What are you saying? And then she quickly apologized and said, I don't know what overcame me. This was the mentality of the Jahiliyyah, isn't it? That it suddenly overcame me. He was my tribesman, he was my family, and I was. So it was very difficult. And we see, in the time in the days of Muharram and Ashura, that this same mentality was used again by the Banu Umayyah. And it was putting again that Hamiyyat al-Jahiliyyah in the minds of people. You are Banu Umayyah, they're Banu Hashim, and so on and so on. And using that tribal mentality to create animosity and hatred amongst people, and get them to do unspeakable and terrible things. And I'm afraid that, the Europe that we're living in is being influenced by similar people as well. People who are bigoted, who are racist, are instilling a hatred in the hearts of people. And it can lead to terrible tragedies, like the tragedy of Karbala, like the tragedies of the world wars, and so on and so forth. And I'm afraid that we are going to relive, if we continue in this way, the same history once again in Europe. And we see that now in the last few days in Finland, how the fuss that's been made around the Perussuomalaiset party and the racist comments and things that have been done by some of the ministers, how they refuse to apologize at first, and I haven't done anything wrong, and then once we put some more pressure, then I apologize. And I think personally, this insistence that they should apologize is pointless, because forcing them to apologize for something they clearly don't regret doesn't do anything except fool the public into thinking that they have changed. They haven't changed. Their so-called master, Allah, is very clear in his writing, that he still is very clear in what he thinks and what he believes. And now Rika Pura, their new sort of leader, is the student of the master, so to speak, as she says herself. So this is very dangerous, that we have these sort of people involved in the highest levels of Finnish politics and instilling this, or normalizing this sort of mentality, this hamiyat al-jahiliyyah amongst the people. We might wonder sometimes when we see the sort of clan mentality of the Arabs back in the Jahiliyyah, how it's still alive and well. It's just different now. Now it's racism, now it's nationalism, now it's patriotism, whatever name they want to give to it. It's the same mentality, but in a different shape and form. And of course, Islam severely condemns such things. It is there to remind us that, oh, Banu Adam, you are ummah wahida, you are all from the same source. And this is one of the important teachings of Islam that we as Muslims should give to the Finnish society, to the non-Muslim societies, that we as Muslims represent a different type of thinking. That we, as we are here today, are gathered of different nations, of different ethnicities, of different cultures, and we are all united by the submission to that message which the prophets have brought as good news to us and as warning. And that is what can unite all of mankind. That can lead to the differences, to the solving of the differences that we have. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He blesses all of us with submission to His path and purity of intent, and unites all of mankind under the banner of Islam. ببركة الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.